Harry and Meghan face their biggest nightmare after King Charles makes his move, and suddenly the silence around them is louder than any scandal, louder than any headline, louder than any interview they've ever given. Because this time, the danger isn't coming from the media, or critics, or royal watchers hiding behind palace gates. This time, the threat is coming from inside the monarchy itself. And if the whispers are true, what's being planned behind closed doors could change everything they have left. Titles, status, legacy, even their place in royal history. And the most unsettling part, the signs are already there, hidden in quiet decisions, subtle moves, and conversations the public was never supposed to hear.
So Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are panicking. Because William, let me be clear, does not believe his father, the cancer-stricken king, has gone far enough. According to Taz, made a really good point about this actually, and how in a modern royal family, and I use that word modern because we know William wants to modernize, and trust me, I understand that lots of you are like me and are nervous about this and think, oh gosh, are we just going to end up like a European monarchy with that tiny little family and no big balcony scenes? But I think because of what's happened over the past few weeks, we've got to go with his vision, actually. I've really even changed my own view.
The quiet inside the Montecito mansion feels different these days, almost tense, like the air itself is holding its breath. For years, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle moved through royal drama like skilled players at a high-stakes table, confident their royal connection would always protect them. But as 2026 unfolds, the mood has clearly shifted. The rules they once relied on, suddenly, they don't look so solid anymore. Whispers from palace circles suggest a level of stress coming from the Sussex camp that hasn't been seen before. This isn't just about harsh headlines or social media criticism. What's being talked about now is far bigger, far bigger. Those two words are floating through royal circles like smoke that won't clear. Because what's being questioned now isn't just their popularity, not just their media deals, not just their relationship with the royal family. What's being questioned now is whether their remaining royal privileges could slowly disappear entirely. Not in one dramatic announcement, not in one explosive headline, but quietly, strategically, piece by piece. The way institutions remove problems when they don't want a public war, but still want a permanent solution.
And I liked the way that Tash suggested we should view royal titles in the future. She suggested on X, royal titles need to be treated as job titles. If you no longer work for the firm and were previously a working royal, excluding retirement, then the titles must be taken or handed back. Harry and Meghan were only given the dukedom as a job position because they promised the Queen, that's the late Queen, they wanted to serve the country. They lied. They have since gone on to use those titles for financial gain, and they have also tried to damage the very institution and family who gave them those titles. They lied for maximum damage and did it publicly for money. They will take any money they can get off anyone who's willing to give it. They are another Andrew and Fergie waiting to happen.
Questions about whether their remaining royal privileges could slowly fade away entirely. Even the once sacred line of succession, something many believed would never be touched, is now part of intense debate. And those Duke and Duchess titles, some insiders say they're hanging by a thread that looks thinner every month. For generations, the royal institution built its authority on a simple but powerful rule: never complain, never explain. That tradition helped the monarchy stay above political fights and public pressure. It created a protective barrier that made royal titles seem permanent and untouchable. But recently, that barrier hasn't just cracked. Cracked, that's the word insiders keep using. Not broken, not destroyed. Cracked. Because a crack means pressure is building. A crack means something is pushing from the other side. And the moment that changed everything didn't even start with Harry and Meghan. It started with someone else. Someone whose scandal forced the palace to do something they almost never do. Something drastic, something permanent.
Actually, maybe William isn't saying this to overstep the boundaries or to try and, trample over my reign. William's actually saying this because he wants to have a monarchy that is able to be saved, and he's trying to help you, Charles. Stop being so intransigent And listen to your eldest son.
It's been shaken in ways people never expected. And the moment that changed everything wasn't connected to the Sussexes at first. It started with the controversy surrounding Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. When the palace took serious steps to distance the institution from Andrew, it quietly opened a door many thought would stay locked forever. Suddenly, the idea that royal status could be reshaped or even removed no longer felt impossible. That was the moment the rulebook changed. Quietly. No dramatic speech, no public warning. Just a decision that showed the world something very important. Royal status is not untouchable anymore. And once a rule is broken once, it becomes easier to break again. That's what has people watching this situation very, very closely. Because now the question isn't could it happen? The question is when would they decide it's necessary? And more importantly, who decides? Because inside palace walls, the power balance is shifting. King Charles is still on the throne, yes. But Prince William, the future king, is no longer just waiting. Observers say he's already thinking about the monarchy he wants to inherit. Smaller, tighter, more controlled. A monarchy where titles are tied to duty, not celebrity. Work, not branding. Service, not interviews. And if that's the future he sees, then Harry and Meghan's current position becomes very complicated, very uncomfortable, very temporary looking. Then came the Jordan trip, and this is where things started getting really awkward. Because on the surface, it looked like charity work, humanitarian meetings, refugee support, important causes. But critics weren't looking at the charity, they were looking at the optics, the titles, the meetings, the photographs, the speeches. And they all started asking the same dangerous question. Are they private citizens, or are they still acting like royals on the world stage without palace approval? Because in royal politics, perception is everything, and confusion is a problem the palace does not tolerate for long. Behind the scenes, that trip reportedly triggered intense conversations in London. Not loud conversations, quiet ones. The kind that happen in private offices, behind heavy doors, where decisions are made slowly and carefully. Because the monarchy doesn't react quickly, it reacts permanently. And the more Harry and Meghan continue operating in that gray zone, not fully royal, not fully private, the more pressure builds for someone to redraw the line once and for all. And if that line gets redrawn, it won't just be a headline, it will be a turning point in royal history. Because what's being discussed now isn't just about two people. It's about the future structure of the monarchy itself. And in that future, there may not be room for half-in, half-out royalty anymore. And if that happens, what Harry and Meghan built their entire post-royal identity on could start disappearing faster than anyone expects. Harry and Meghan faced their biggest nightmare after King Charles makes his move. Because what's happening now doesn't look like one big explosion. It looks like something much more dangerous. A slow closing circle, a tightening system, a shift in power that doesn't need headlines to be real. And the most unsettling part of this entire story is that every piece of pressure, the titles, the money, the security, the public image, all of it is starting to move at the same time, like gears in a machine that has finally been switched on. The media deals that once looked like their great escape plan are no longer being talked about the same way. When those massive contracts were first announced, the numbers sounded enormous, the headlines sounded triumphant, and the narrative was simple. They had left the monarchy but secured global influence on their own terms. But the entertainment industry is not the royal family. It doesn't protect reputation out of tradition. It protects profit. And when viewership numbers don't match expectations, loyalty disappears very quickly. Suddenly, the tone around their Netflix partnership started changing. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. Words like restructuring, words like new strategy, words like independent growth. Corporate language that sounds harmless until you realize it usually means the deal is shrinking, not expanding. And if media income becomes unpredictable at the same time royal ties become weaker, that creates a very uncomfortable situation because their entire post-royal life was built on a very specific formula. Royal status plus media power equals global influence. But what happens if one side of that equation starts disappearing? At the same time, another problem refuses to go away: security. Harry's long legal battle over protection in the United Kingdom has turned into something much bigger than a personal safety issue. It has become a political argument, a public debate, and a media storm all at once. Because the question being asked is brutally simple. Should taxpayers pay for security for someone who no longer works as a royal and lives in another country? Supporters say security is about safety, not job titles. Critics say public money should follow public duty. And that argument has created a situation where even a legal win can turn into a public relations loss. Because every time the security issue returns to the headlines, it reminds the public of the same uncomfortable contradiction. They stepped away from royal duties, but the royal connection still follows them everywhere, especially when it comes to protection, status, and titles. And then there's the title issue itself, the one thing that sits at the center of everything. Because a royal title is not just a name, it's not just tradition, it's a passport to influence. It opens doors in politics, business, media, charity, and high society all over the world. And everyone knows it. Critics know it. Supporters know it. The palace knows it. And that's why the conversation about titles has become so serious behind the scenes. Because if the monarchy is moving toward a smaller, more controlled structure, then the question becomes unavoidable. What happens to family members who live abroad, make private business deals, give interviews, sign media contracts, and still use royal titles while doing it? That's why some political voices have started mentioning something that sounds almost unthinkable: revisiting old laws that allow royal titles to be removed under certain circumstances. Not done yet, not officially proposed, but discussed. And in royal history, discussions are often the first step toward decisions. The idea being quietly floated is modernization, streamlining, a smaller monarchy, fewer working royals, fewer titles in active use. It sounds administrative, it sounds technical, it sounds harmless, but in reality, it would change the entire structure of the royal family, and Harry, Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet would be directly affected by any change to titles or the line of succession. This is why insiders keep repeating the same phrase over and over: this is not a family argument anymore. This is an institutional decision. And while all of this is happening, something else is making palace insiders nervous: the possibility of another book, another version of the story, this time from someone who was much closer to the center during the most explosive years of the royal fallout, Sarah Ferguson. Fergie, a woman who has seen royal scandals from the inside for decades and who, during the most tense period of the Sussex drama, was living close enough to see things the public never saw. If she writes a memoir, it won't just be gossip. It will be a competing narrative. And in royal history, the second version of a story is always the dangerous one, because it doesn't just tell new details, it challenges the version people already believe. At the same time, Meghan's lifestyle brand has been facing delays, trademark complications, and slow development behind the scenes. Not failure, not cancellation, but not smooth success either. And in the business world, momentum is everything. Delays create whispers. Whispers create doubt. Doubt makes investors, partners, and media companies nervous. And when business becomes uncertain, at the same time, media deals become uncertain and royal status becomes uncertain, the pressure doesn't just add up, it multiplies. Meanwhile, inside the monarchy, the future is already being planned, not announced, planned. And every royal expert keeps saying the same thing: the monarchy that Prince William will eventually lead will look very different from the monarchy of the past. Smaller, stricter, focused only on working royals. No half royals, no part-time royals, no blurred roles. And if that vision becomes reality, then the Sussex situation stops being a personal drama and becomes a structural problem that the monarchy will eventually solve the only way institutions know how to solve problems: by changing the rules. And this is why some people say this is their biggest nightmare. Not because of one decision, not because of one person, but because everything is shifting at the same time. Money, media, security, public opinion, royal structure, political discussion, family relationships, all of it moving, all of it changing, all of it slowly closing in on one question that nobody has answered yet, but everyone is thinking.